Talk about how the style of play, comparing it from the 70s and 80s to how it is now.
Okay, well, one thing, uh, players today are stronger and quicker. There's just no question about that, I think. And I think there's a number of reasons for it, but one of the big factors is the training factor. Uh, Kids are training better today as far as, they have access in a lot of the schools, not all schools, a lot of the schools they have access to weight training. Back in the 60s when I played, they told us, oh, you don't want to lift weights because it'll mess up your shot. Well, I didn't have anything to lose because no wasn't anything going to mess my shot up because it was already messed up. So I should have lifted the heck out of weights. But at any rate, that was one of the things. Well, as a matter of fact, actually, when I came to Teutopolis, the weight room was in a place called the old unit office, which is a little. It's now it's just a supply closet down there. But uh, there was a universal gym there, which was an old weight type machine and a few free weights, but that was light years ahead of a lot of schools. Okay, and then we eventually, Dennis and I started putting together a weight program, and we ended up. They allowed us to move some equipment. We found a guy out in the country who had a his own mini gym, and he wanted to sell it. So there was some there was some Nautilus machines and some other Universal equipment, and we moved it upstairs to where the band room was at that time, over the stage area, the gym there, and so that was great. I have not been in the new weight training facility here, but I'm certain they did a great job. They I know when Andy Fehrenbacher took over, they for me, he had those guys. They did better with their weight training than I did, and I thought I'd studied it pretty well with it. But they got after it, and now I know it's I mean, the the students, the players today, not only here but everywhere, they're stronger, they're quicker, and I think in a certain respects they're more athletic. Now, that being said, as far as the game itself, a lot of people, even some coaches, think they know how to reinvent the game. The game of basketball is somewhat cyclical. In other words, for instance, you see a lot of teams today that are running the high screen and roll. And back when I played in high school, actually the first play I ever learned in junior high, in grade school. This is back when Christ was a child. Okay, all right. The first thing we learned was the screen roll, the high screen roll or the elbow screen roll. Okay, now it's utilized a lot more effectively today, okay, than it was then. But it's still the same. It's still the same thing. So that was there. Well, then people got in the 70s when actually they got away from the screen and roll game. Then they went to a strict passing game for a while. Then motion offense came in, and then there were not a lot of ball screens in the motion offense. You had a lot of down screens, you had a lot of flare screens, had a lot of back screens. Had pick and pops and things of that nature, but not a lot of ball screens. Okay, so that came in. Then all of a sudden, the weave started coming in, and the weave precluded the high ball screen. So if you look today, you're seeing teams use a lot more high ball screens. Another thing too, the three-point shot has changed this game. Some for good, some for bad. I think the successful teams are using it to their advantage, and I think their shot selection is good. I will be honest with you. I watched every game this year that Teutopolis played, the high school team, except that I didn't get to watch Marshall because it wasn't on TV, but I got to listen to it. Their floor spacing was outstanding. And this is a real credit to Coach Reeder and his team, because they shared the basketball. Their spacing on the floor was outstanding. you did not see very many bad shots, whether it's a 3-point shot or otherwise. You didn't see very many bad shots at all. Okay, and these guys shot with confidence. Okay, and so I think they used the 3-point shot very intelligently. So that's the good side. The downside is I saw a lot of teams on the internet this year, and I see a lot of college teams that sometimes they take what I would consider to be not very intelligent shots from that 3-point shot. They come down and fire up threes with no conscience, sometimes with no rebounders. So I would say that there's a couple things that have really changed. Now you're seeing a lot more dribbling than you saw back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Okay, they're dribbling a lot more one-on-one activity. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But I will say one thing is I find it very interesting to see these guys once they get the ball the hole, they're penetrating, and once they're getting the hole, they're using a lot of the same basic stuff that guys were using back in the 60s when they got the hole. It's like I said, so it's kind of a cycle. I do think there's more one-on-one activity. The 3-point line, it has spread the defense out. Therefore, you really, really, really have to work harder on rotation. And when you take something away on defense, you're going to give something up. And you have to know what you're giving up and be willing to do that. So you have to work on rotation. You have to work really hard on guarding the guy with the basketball. That's the most difficult thing to do in basketball, I think, as far as from the defensive side, is guarding the guy with the ball. I know we got a lot of stuff from Tom Izzo on that when I was coaching and drills on how to guard the guy with the basketball. And so I think you see a lot more one-on-one activity there. You're seeing more 3-point shots. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. The thing you don't see as much of the the mid-range jumper. I think it would behoove some of these teams. Although I will say the good teams are still doing a couple things. They're obviously able to get the ball the hole and they're able to shoot the three. But the really good teams, I'm speaking from the college angle here a lot. They also, their kids, a lot of their guys know how to shoot that mid-range jumper and can do it effectively. And they also really attack the offensive glass, which you see a lot of these teams come down, just fire up a shot and just start running to the other end. So I think another thing I think has changed the game a little bit is, if we were going to scout a team, we had to go out and physically see them. You could call somebody and get a tape. Now guys can watch other teams on the internet. I think the coaching, we used to go to a lot of coaches' clinics. You see a lot of coaches there. There aren't as many clinics now. They're picking up, a lot of coaches are picking up a lot of stuff off the internet. Some of the good, there's some really good stuff out there on the internet. There's some stuff that's absolutely horrible that I think some of these guys are picking up. And it's some of these guys that are proclaiming to be, they portray themselves to be an authority on something when their authority on, I can't say it in this interview what they're an authority on, but it's not good. But at any rate, what I'm trying to say is I think that coaches that do it today have access to some good information out there, but they have to be able to ferret out the bad stuff. So yeah, the game is different, but it's not significantly different than it was from years ago. There are things I would have to change today if I was coaching. There are certain things that I would look at and I would research a little bit more. The step back three, that was never used when I coached, but we used to utilize we called them moves on the move, and some of the stuff I got from Morgan Wooten, but we called it a pullback move, and it was basic, but we pulled it back. We attacked the guy, pulled it back, and then he used a crossover between the legs to open up space and change direction. Today they're using that pullback move a lot, and that's the basic move to set up for the step back three. That's a shot that can be used intelligently, but boy, I see it used with not a great deal of intelligence a lot too.
Most memorable games.
You know, there's a lot of memorable games. As you go back, uh, I the thing about coaching is uh, most coaches who've been in business a long time and then have gotten out, you remember the losses. The victories fade pretty quickly. The losses stick with you because you know in your own mind what mistakes you made. Of course, the guys downtown are going to tell you all the mistakes that they think you made, but you know what mistakes you made, and you kick yourself in the rear for making those mistakes. But some more memorable games, through the years. I a very big one as far as I was concerned at the Teutopolis was the that first Charleston Holiday Tournament championship was big. We actually played Casey in that game, and they had a whale of a basketball game. Jeff Finke played for them, and they had a really good. They were big, strong, good, and that was big. One game that sticks out in my mind was a game that we lost my second year. We were 2-0 in Charleston, and when we lost that second game in that tournament, we were out. Man, I was as down as anybody could be. And I went to the locker room. When I came out of the locker room, Ed Bukovich was standing there. Ed Bukovich had won the state championship at Mount Pulaski, had gotten I believe, a second or third place finish there. And he's one of the most renowned coaches in the state of Illinois. And he's standing outside my locker room. And here's the type of guy Ed Bukovich was. Ed Bukovich said, "Hey, Coach," he said, "that one out of bounds play," and he started scratching. He said, "Would you mind drawing that out of bounds play for me that you?" He said, "I really like that thing." So I said, "Well, okay," and so I did it. And when he left, he said, "Well, good job," and he left. I thought about that later on. Ed Bukovich, I don't think Ed Bukovich cared what type of out of bounds plays I was playing. He was trying to make me feel better as a coach. That's what he was doing. He saw a young coach who was struggling. He went to help him. So that was a game that stuck out simply because of what Ed did, okay, after the game. And he taught me a lot right then about coaching, right then. That was a life lesson right there. But you go on, obviously, in 1986, that sectional championship was big. Teutopolis had never won a sectional. And a lot of people today don't realize that. They take sectionals for granted. But they shouldn't do that, But of course, a lot of those years were in the one-class system. But then we actually went for 15 years in the two-class system before we won a sectional. So that was a big victory, a hard-fought victory. We played Tiny Martinsville over here, and Randy Bishop was coaching them. Steve Bennett had coached them the year before and got to the sectional and got beat by Flora. But that was Randy Bishop's first year. There were 3 turnovers in that game. We ended up winning the game by 3 or 4 points, maybe 5. I don't remember. But it was a very, very tight game. There were 3 turnovers. We had 1, they had 2. It was a really well-played game. And so obviously through that state tournament run, there were a lot of big games. Another game. I know I keep going back to this Charleston tournament. That was just such a fun tournament, or just a fun place to coach. There were, the 2000 win, the last second shot that put us up in over Mount Zion. And then, you just go back. There were a lot of victories. 1998 winning that regional at Dietrich was a big thing because St. Anthony had hammered us pretty good earlier in the year. Matter of fact, they may have beaten us twice, probably did. But we were able to get that result. That was a fun game. Later on, games that stick out. Of course, obviously, the 2000, the games during 2000. But there were a lot of games from teams. Like I remember one night we're playing at Cowden Herrick and we were struggling. And I think that game may have gone to overtime. One of my kids stole the ball and went down and scored right at the end of regulation, or Cowden Herrick would have beaten us. Those are the type of games you remember. A lot of those things. and go back. A lot of those games I remember, though I'm not going to go into, is because we lost because of mistakes that I made. And but by the same token, there were a lot of a lot of fun games. Of course, in 2000 to get to that championship game, we had to go through Edwardsville first, and that was an overtime ball game. So there were a lot of really good games through the years, and they were all fun. Well, I'll do that like I did the players. I've never said who my best team was, who my best player was, because that would always detract from all the others. I mean, they were all my favorites, to be honest with you. And besides, if I answered who I thought my best player was and who my best team was, if I gave an answer to that question, then golly, that'd take a lot of fun out of the guys that like to go downtown to the taverns and the coffee shops and the family gatherings and argue over that. Well, and so that just give them something else to hate me for, if I said, well, this is and plus it takes some of the fun out for them. So let them go argue that. But all my teams were fun. You asked earlier, you asked about games that you remember. You just remember so many of them. Obviously, I want to go back and touch on a couple of games. The last 2 years I coached, we went up against Seneca in the Elite Eight. They were undefeated, ranked number 1. That was a very memorable game. And then the next year, we went up against Nashville in the quarterfinals, and they were ranked number 1 in the state, undefeated, and had hammered us 3 weeks earlier. And we were able to pull that game out, and then we did get beat by Monroe, and I remember every play of that game. And but at any rate, there was a lot of memorable games, a lot of memorable teams. They were all my favorite.
Your favorite gyms to coach in, or the best atmosphere?
Well, there's, to be honest with you, there were a lot of fun gyms, but the old golf gym, you go in there, I mean, that was dog eat dog, so to speak, in there, and that was a great place. I mean, you talk about a lot of excitement. Of course, my favorite gym was coaching J.H. Griffin gym. We called that the House of Pain. But enjoyed that. I absolutely loved coaching at Lance Gymnasium, because you knew you were either going to be coaching at the Charleston tournament or you're going to be coaching the super section. So those were what I would say would be my favorite gymnasiums.
What assistants pushed you to be a better coach?
Okay, I think number one, I felt the most important quality of an assistant was loyalty. And I've been through this gambit for years, and I've seen assistant coaches who were loyal. I've seen assistant coaches who were not loyal, who wanted the head coach's job. I never experienced that in my tenure here, but I saw it at other schools, and I didn't have a lot of respect for those assistants. So I felt loyalty was number one. And then number two, I didn't necessarily want my assistants to. I had no problem if they disagreed with me on something. But it had to be a situation where we weren't showing disrespect to one another in front of the players, whatever. But if they had a concern about something I was doing and felt there was a better way to do it or something I need to address, then I welcomed that, And so going back to as far as assistants, I'd have to start with junior high school coaches. And boy, I was fortunate with junior high school coaches. When I came here, Dave Julius and Nick Daters were the two junior high school coaches, and they were with me for a long time. And those two guys bought into what we were trying to do. I told them, I said, I don't care what you run offensively, but I really would appreciate it if you'd run man-to-man defense and do it the way we're trying to teach it, and then and make sure they work on rebounding, and then work on just the fundamentals: shooting, passing, dribbling, cutting, all those things, because it's all fundamental. Because I wanted the junior high program to feed right into the high school program, and then because my coaching philosophy was all fundamentals. I was not a great X and O coach. I wasn't a great coach, period, but I wasn't a great X and O coach. But we studied not only the correct way to exercise the fundamentals of basketball, but the correct teaching manner. I tried to go to the best teachers I could find and find out how the best way to teach these things. But as far as assistant coach, like I said, Dave Juice and Mick just did a great job. Dan Nieberg helped us out a year or so, and then Kent Nieberg and Doug Smith came in. And those are the junior high coaches that were here when I was here. And, of course, Doug and Kent are still at it and still doing a great job. So had great junior high school coaches. As far as high school assistants here, I had a couple really good assistants at Rossville. But here at Teutopolis, when I started my first year, Larry Johnson was the JV varsity assistant. Ron Castler was fresh soft. Ron stayed for 1 year, and then he was coaching baseball, both seasons of baseball, and he wanted it one time for his family. He had a young family. So he only stayed with me 1 year. But then Scott Thomas had been working out at Green Creek and working out there and coaching the little kids out there, the Green Creek Wildcats. But at any rate, I asked Scott to come in. And that was a great addition. He and Larry Johnson, they were just really, really good assistants. And our personalities complemented one another in various ways. Larry was more laid back, but boy, he could get with it when it was time to get with it. He could, and he had a great relationship with the players. I was probably more caustic, meaning that I've got more fiery personality. And Scott Thomas had a great basketball mind. Scott was a really, really good scout, and he was competitive as any individual I've ever seen in my life. Scott, if you went fishing with Scott, he was going to know how many fish he caught and how many fish you caught. If you went squirrel hunting with him, he was going to do the same thing, and that's the way he coached too. And that was great. He ended up going on to Sullivan, took over a girls basketball program that had really down, ended up winning a state championship, and I think got second another time. Then Rod Grimsley came along. Rod Grimsley, another assistant, with just a great mind for basketball, a phenomenal mind. If people listen to some of the discussions Rod Grimsley and I had, they would have thought we hated each other. We argued a lot, but it was always respectful. We're very close friends, to this day. And so I was fortunate. Then, some other guys who came in, I had players who came back. Jeff Thompson came back. Bob Zerusin came back. They came back and helped the fresh soft. These were great guys and great helps to us. Wally Thompson, he was from Cowden, and he came over and helped us. Then along came Rob Smith. Rob was actually here on two different stints. He was here, left for a little while, and then came back. Of course, he ended up at Central A&M, was highly successful at A&M. Had a young man named John Young out of Chicago, was here for a few years. And Andy Fehrenbacher joined the thing, and Andy did just a phenomenal job. Did a great job here as a head coach, doing a really great job down at Salem now, and still a very close friend. Actually, Kent Nieberg helped us for a year or two at the fresh soft level, in addition to coaching at the junior high. Rich Prupst, phenomenal assistant. Rich had that fiery want-to-win personality that Scott Thomas had, and Rich was really, really intelligent, very loyal, and a really good scout. I mean, Andy and Rich and I, those, like I said, they were my last three assistants, basically. Our last two assistants, and we said we didn't know how great a coaching staff we had, but no staff had any more fun than we did. We had a lot of fun, but I also had Todd Taylor helped us, another old player, and then Justin Flinderman last year came in and helped us some. So I mean, you can't get a better guy than Justin Flinder. I mean, he wanted to rub it in occasionally that his senior year that they beat us in the regional final when he was playing for Louisville for Ron Reed, but I can live with that because he was doing a good job. But he's just a great guy, So I was very fortunate to have great assistants. I can't tell you how great a help and how supportive they were, and how most of our success went to those guys.
How long were you at Teutopolis, and how many wins did you have?
I was here for 26 years, and I had to go look this up, 612 and 150.
Describe your friendship you had with all the referees around here.
Well, and I can't say any bad words. Oh, okay. Well, at any rate, no. I will tell you, I had the greatest respect for officials. Earlier in my career, Tyler, I probably got some technicals that I probably shouldn't have got because I was trying to argue things that I shouldn't have been arguing. As time went on, I learned there are certain things that you can talk to an official about, and some things you're best leave them alone. For instance, there's no need arguing a block charge call. because you might ask the official. If I asked I learned if I had a question, I'd say, were you watching the defensive player's feet, or where were the defensive player's feet? Because that's going to determine whether it's a block or a charge. There were a lot of coaches who told me and a lot of people said I got away with a lot of stuff. Well, the longer you're in coaching, you respect the officials. They will show you a certain amount of respect, and then you pick your arguments. These guys, younger coaches, and I was one of them probably, who are nipping at the heels of the referee all the time. Well, that's no good. I mean, that's distracting. Plus, your team needs to be coached. They don't need another referee on the floor. So I learned that. But if I had a question, sometimes I would be fired up, but sometimes I'd pretty respectfully come home and say, hey, listen, I thought that was an over and back. And I remember one of the best officials I ever saw in my life, a guy named Dick Carter. And I saw a lot of really good ones. And Dick Carter, there was an over and back call. This is back when I was coaching at Rossville. There was an over and back call. And I looked at Dick and I said, Dick, wasn't that over and back? He said, Coach, if it had been over and back, I would have called it. I said, good answer. So no, I'll be honest with you, I had great respect for these guys. These guys, they're not trying to cheat you. You get over 100 miles away, you might get hosed a little bit, but I always said if we're going to get 90 or 100 miles away, we better be able to play against 7 guys. But no, these guys, they work at it. It's a profession, and I really admire them.
How many technicals did you end up having?
Well, probably early in my career, I got a few, but in all honesty, later on in my career, not very many. Not very many. Like I said, simply because I learned what you can't do. So if I got one though, I earned it.
So how many state appearances did you end up having, and how many times did you win the state title?
Well, in the old days, under the 2-class system, they considered the super sectional be the state finals. So we actually went to the super sectional 7 times. We won 6 of those super sectionals. So we got to either Peoria or Champaign 6 times. We won 1 state championship in 1986. Got a second in 2000 and a third in 2007. But just getting there was great for those teams and those kids. They were good kids.